Hello and welcome to episode 15 of Art Supply Posse, a podcast about art supplies and the people that use them. This episode is brought to you by our good friends over at Art Snacks. I'm Heather Rivard, and I am joined, as always, by my lovely co-host Anna, but we are not alone this week, are we, Anna?
Nope.
We are also joined by Marty Owings of, what's the official name of your YouTube channel, Marty?
Owings Art. That's
Owings
it.
Art. And the blog by the same name?
Owingsart.com. Yep.
Yeah. So Marty runs a great blog and YouTube channel covering a lot of the stuff we cover on the show, some tutorials, and reviews, but also just like more general interest art conversations. So we are excited to have you on the show and to hear a little bit about your journey as an artist.
Thank you. Well, I'm just excited to be here. I love your podcast. You guys are awesome. So I feel like a kid over here, little butterflies, giddy, It's great.
You were one of the first people that reached out to us, I think, after we launched the show. I think you might have found us through Anna's blog.
Actually, one of my YouTube subscribers said, hey, these two people are making this awesome podcast and they gave you a shout out. And I said, really? And so then once I listened to one episode, I had to listen to the second one, then I got hooked. So I was
cool.
binge listening.
So Anna, you were aware of his YouTube channel?
Absolutely. Where do you think I found out about a lot of the stuff that I have purchased over the years?
Very, very cool. Yeah, I saw one of your videos, Marty, where you were just doing kind of like a breakdown of all the stuff that you had bought at the store, and you were going to do more in-depth reviews later. But I really enjoyed that because that was kind of more my speed of like, I got this thing, it's cool. I got this other thing, it's also cool.
Yeah, that's just a whole world and universe of fun when you can do an art haul video, It's just, people love that. For some reason, they just like get excited like I do. I just get excited when I get new stuff. It's cool.
Yeah. Cool.
Super cool. Speaking of new stuff, I got a new book this week called Ladies Drawing Night. Have you guys heard about this book?
No, I haven't heard of it.
It's by three authors, Julia Rothman, who's an illustrator. Well, they're all illustrators, artists, art directors. Julia Rothman, Leah Gorin, and Rachel Cole. And they had been meeting every week in New York for like a drawing night. And they decided to publish a book of sort of what they were doing. And they would invite like other friends to come and join them. And they would like theme out their night. So like maybe one night would be like a figure drawing, and like each person would take turns being the subject for 10 minutes, and then they would switch, and then someone else would be the model. Or one night they did this whole thing where they built like a city out of like little bits of cardboard, and then they would paint on them, and they do different pieces. And so by the end of the night they had this like little city of buildings and people and little cars, and just the book is amazing and beautiful. And the different artists that came to their drawing night with them were often fairly well-known illustrators as well. Like one night they did a lettering night, and Mary Kate McDevitt showed up. I'm like, it's nice to have famous friends.
Very cool.
But
yeah.
It's a beautiful book and just a really great idea. And they've kind of focused on kind of getting, sort of a girls' night out sort of thing. But I think any group of friends could sort of put an evening together like this. And just
like poker night, it's
exactly.
It's basically the same structure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And keeping it a small group of, close friends, and keeping it away from, like, these people were all sort of professional creatives, and taking it away from sort of their day job, which spoke a lot to me because that's sort of what I do, but it's like nobody was allowed to bring whatever project they were working on. Like, no, you're not allowed to bring anything you're working on. So it's like, do something that's just for you and just for fun. And that they found it really freeing just to do something totally different. And in a lot of cases, they were people who maybe were now like in director roles or something like that and didn't get to make things anymore. So it was fun for them to have an opportunity to go back to making stuff or not doing things on a computer or not doing, digital work. So
yeah, and this kind of thing is a part of your weekly rhythm, isn't it, Anna?
I have a weekly knit night that I do, but everybody brings whatever project they're currently working on, and we get to sort of talk about and see what we're doing. And it's, we always meet sort of at like a restaurant or a bar or something, but this is sort of more of a focused and specifically on art, which I think it sort of takes it in a very different place. And I found super inspiring and super exciting. And I'm like, well, I have Wednesday night knit night. Can I figure out a way to make, a Friday night drawing night or a...
Surely you are running out of nights, Anna.
I'm running out of nights to do things, but...
What about you, Marty? Do you have any sort of meetup schedule, or do you get together and make art?
Oh, you guys, it's insane. My whole life is wall-to-wall stuff like that, which is awesome, and it's wonderful to have that kind of life, and I'm so thankful that I'm able to do it. But yes, I do. On Sunday nights, I go to a figure sketching class. They call it a gesture co-op, and we just each pay like $10, and for 2 hours we have a live model there that, the model changes every week, and everybody just goes and gesture sketches. And then besides that, I host a sketch event every Saturday morning for a few hours where just a bunch of us from the it's called the Underground Artists League, but it's a Facebook group that we have here in the Twin Cities. We just all go out and sketch. And then when that's not happening, believe it or not, there are like Metro Sketchers or Urban Sketchers events, lots of that type of opportunity in the Twin Cities. So I'm always out with those groups or doing something art related. So yeah, it really feeds the soul. I love doing it. So
yeah, I think it has benefits even beyond your artistic practice. Back when I was first getting started as an organizer, I read a book called Bowling Alone. Are you guys familiar with this book?
No.
It's by a Harvard professor. He wrote it sort of coming up with this notion of social capital, which is, he's like a sociologist, and he found ways of measuring how connected communities are. And then he measured how well connected communities have been throughout time. So things like bowling leagues, things like churches, soccer leagues, poker night, sketching night, like any kind of thing that gets people together. And he's shown how the more connection you have like that, it's well correlated with other kinds of community health, like people being more politically active, more politically responsive. Because if you can imagine, like if you've got a sketching group of 20 people and one of you is being affected by, a power outage in an underserved part of the city or some other thing that's happening, like you're more able to respond to those things when you're well connected as a group of people.
For sure. Yep.
Yeah, so that just made me so smile so hard when you put that in the notes, Anna. That's like my favorite thing in the whole world.
Well, and the other thing is, even if it's maybe not something you're super interested in from the standpoint of having time to organize an event like that in your area, the book is beautiful, and the artwork that came out of it is really something to see. So even if you could get a chance to pick it up at your local library, just to take a peek at the artwork,
well, for sure,
just to see the artwork cool. that these artists created, it's super cool. So, but I had two other little tidbits that I found this week, and one of them was a website called Book by Its Cover. Have you guys seen this?
Not until you put it in there, but you live on some amazing part of the internet where everything is wonderful. You always come up with this stuff.
Same here. I love looking inside those people's sketchbooks.
Yeah. So, and I think I stumbled across this as a result of looking through the Ladies Drawing Night book, but Book by Its Cover has a whole bunch of sketchbooks. And it's not like a full sketchbook, but it's individuals artists' sketchbooks, and you can kind of see several pages from different sketchbooks, and it's just fun to sort of see different types of work, and in some instances it's not necessarily everyone's best pages. Sometimes there's very scratchy, and you can see like pen notes and someone's grocery list,
but that's
drawn
cool.
in the margins, which is really cool.
Yeah, I love that.
So they're very functional, in a lot of cases, very functional sketchbooks. And you can also see, in some instances, it's artists' books from a couple years ago. And these are now people who have sort of moved on. And you can see their artistic progression, which is really cool to see, too. So we'll include a link to Book by its cover in the show notes so you guys can take a look at it. It's very cool.
Yeah, and it goes along with little interviews with the artists. And as we've talked about before, it's always great to read about different perspectives on making a sketchbook. I read one of the little interviews by a professional illustrator who talked about how she doesn't doodle, she doesn't sketch. She's very tactical when she takes out a sketchbook. She's always planning and preparing for a final piece. And if you look through her book, it's very orderly and proceeding from idea to composition to final product. And I always think that it's good to see inside those books and know that they are as unique as every person is. There's no right way, there's no wrong way to do it.
Yeah, it's very cool just to see how different people think. So, yep. And the last thing I found was a site called 1,000 Things to Draw. And this went back to, several occasions we've had where people have talked about not having, kind of running out of ideas or not knowing where to start. I don't know what to draw. And this website sort of answers that question by providing a PDF and a web application. And it's available for $10, and it's 1,000 things to draw, and it's sort of it's done almost like I think like an exquisite corpse kind of thing, if you know what that is, where it's like it's going to combine words together, so it's like it's like a flip book kind of thing where it'll combine like 5 or 6 different words, and then you can draw what those words combine into. So
yeah, and the web app is free to use, so you don't even have to buy the PDF. I was a little confused at first, but you can use it without even paying. It just gives you one option at a time as opposed to everything all at once.
So you could probably just sort of log into it and try it out. But then if you want the PDF so that you can sort of carry it with you or have it with you. But I thought it was interesting. Thought I'd throw it in there if anybody was curious.
Like it. Very cool. We also got some great feedback on the topic of limited palette. Did you happen to listen to that episode last week, Marty?
I did not catch the last podcast. No, I need to catch up.
Oh, that's all right. We had a listener. Is Julie the name of the listener, Anna?
Yes.
Yeah. She provided a couple blog posts from another painter looking, in some cases, at some pretty extreme limited palettes. Somebody was doing this really beautiful landscape painting with just 2 colors plus red. I think it was it oil painting, Anna? It looked like that to me. Maybe it wasn't.
James Gurney works in a lot of different mediums.
No, it must be acrylic because he's in a sketchbook. That would not dry enough for him to. He
tends to work in gouache and watercolor a lot, but he has been known to work in like casein and oil. But I think probably for sketchbook it was probably gouache. But yeah, his work is amazing.
Yeah, just his tonal variations are what make that. So you don't need a lot of color when you can vary your tones the way he can and just perfectly place light in the painting. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's what I think is so beneficial for amateurs or beginners, to limit your palette, because it's just what you said, Marty. If you really paint something well, it's because you've captured the way the light is moving through that composition.
Yes.
And when you limit your colors, I think it helps me avoid the sort of coloring book impulse to just go, oh, that's blue and that's red and that's green, and to not be paying attention to the more important elements of what's light, what's dark, what's forward, what's backwards.
That's exactly right. I'm always trying to stress that with beginning artists and stuff. So I will challenge myself oftentimes to just use a very limited palette, because I think it brings you back to that. It gets you, you can recenter yourself, and I totally agree with you.
Have you looked at James Gurney's work before, Marty?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I love it. I've seen it around in like there was somebody posted something on Facebook, maybe it was a year or two ago, and I clicked on the link, and by the time I looked back at the clock, I had spent like 2 hours. You guys ever go down the rabbit hole of art, And you're just like, I got to find everything James Gurney has ever done,
Absolutely.
And then I'm looking at all of his stuff, trying to find anywhere it's at, and it's just awesome. I'm familiar with him, and he's just spectacular.
I think he offers a lot of like online videos and things, like tutorials. I haven't ever tried any of them because I'm a little intimidated with his ability to use light and shadow. Like his work is so beautiful. I'm like, I don't know if I possess that gift.
Well, speaking of intimidating, the next video that was submitted in feedback is from an artist who has done 2 presidential portraits.
Wow.
Wow.
So I was like, that's probably like beyond where I'm reaching. Did I put his name in the notes? Mark Carter. Yeah. He has actually produced his own line of paint in partnership with some other folks based on the Geneva palette. I don't know if that's a thing or if that's just what he named it, but it's like a 6-color palette, and he has a bunch of videos about paint mixing, and he has like a 20-minute long video sort of introducing the line of paints that he uses, and it definitely was in that sort of Bob Ross space of like a soft voice speaking like very calmly about art and mixing colors. I found myself watching it for like 10 minutes before I had noticed.
Down the art rabbit hole. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And he is pushing things really to the hard edge of realistic painting. So like I said, that's not really a thing that I aspire to under any circumstances anyway, but it's pretty cool to see what he can put together.
Well, just to give a slightly different perspective on paintings of presidents, one of my friends at Hallmark is very inspired by all things presidential, so he's been doing illustrations of presidents. His name is Charlie Hadley, and I put a link in there.
See, this is much more my jam. These are like cartoon prints of presidents.
He does these wonderful illustrations of the presidents. But they kind of make me laugh. They're very funny. Yeah, but not quite as sophisticated.
Well,
you don't have to be sophisticated to be really, really good. That's
yeah.
Sure.
I think having your painting hang up in the White House might be a little too far reaching for most folks. That would leave a very limited range of people that could claim that accomplishment.
That's right.
Yeah, could be.
I'd settle for Secretary of State. I don't,
But thanks to, I think, a listener named Roland who sent that video in. I really appreciated that. I thought that was pretty cool.
That was very cool. Well, I think it's about time to thank our sponsor today.
I think so. You want to take it, Anna?
I certainly will. Today's episode is sponsored by Art Snacks, a subscription service offering monthly boxes of high-quality art supplies. Each month, Art Snacks sends their subscribers 4 to 5 full-size art supplies, and oh boy, have they done it again. Art Snacks did a little hint on the internet this week about their upcoming October box, and I'm more perplexed than ever. You want to hear the hint?
Yeah.
I do. I saw this video, and I'm so curious.
The October box is spookier than ever. What flows on paper but goes bump in the night. Specially developed in a laboratory and tested by artists, this limited edition mystery product is in the October box. Only a limited supply of this product was made, and Art Snackers will be one of the first to receive it. Treat yourself and or surprise a friend, subscribe before September 23rd to get the October box. If you want to see a picture for yourself, we'll include a link in the show notes. It's a weird and wonderful explosion of color. The ink is in water, and it's in reds and blues and greens and a hint of like dusky purple. And I think they even put out a video on Instagram.
Yeah, it looks like a bit of paint like poured into water, and it's all like blooming and pluming up under the water. It's really cool looking.
It's crazy. I played the Instagram video at work, and I didn't realize there was sound, and it was like booming like church bells, and I was like, wait, no, quiet, hush, quiet. If you want to try art snacks yourself, you can use the coupon code Art Supply Posse for 10% off your first month and show your support for Art Supply Posse. Don't forget to check out Art Snacks shop for previous month's boxes, and I believe they just added the Inktober box to the shop.
Oh, did they?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, great.
Yep. And goodies like the awesome Aqua limited edition Art Snacks Alvin mechanical pencil from the September box. You can now purchase it through the shop.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's the pencil that we talked about quite a bit. Yeah, so this is the new shop that they've recently launched. So if you miss out on something, you might have a last minute chance. So the Inktober collection and that pencil we talked about, while supplies last, you can grab them.
Yep. And as far as I know, my Inktober kit delivered today, but my husband's not home yet.
Mine is supposed to come tomorrow. I have my little deliveries app tracking it, and I'm just being like a responsible level of obsessive, like looking at it only a couple times a day.
Yeah, I got my notice today, and it says your package was signed for by B. Atkins, and I'm like, darn it.
Damn it, B. Atkins. What about you, Marty? Have you heard of Art Snacks? Have you seen these guys floating around on the internet?
I have, and I think it's a great way to get a hold of, things that you want to test and try out. I'm always interested in what comes in those boxes. Like there's a Loot Crate, friends of mine do Loot Crate and some different ones, but yeah, Art Snacks is cool. Unfortunately for me, I buy so much of my own art supplies that, I don't have any money left. So I just.
Yeah. I think also once you know what you like, then you can shop on your own. I think I know a lot less about art supplies, so it's kind of a nice way to jumpstart it and for me to find some stuff. But yeah, I saw that haul that you got from the art store. I don't think you need any help with that.
Well, I think it's great though, because like if once I reach a certain saturation point where I don't know really everything that's out there, or I, forget things or don't want to reuse what I've already used, it's nice to get something in the mail once in a while, open it up and go, wow, I didn't even know that existed. It's cool to get a little surprise like that, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm pretty jazzed about it. So yeah, thanks to Art Snacks. Use coupon code Art Supply Posse for 10% off. That brings us to our main event today, which is that we are excited to hear a little bit more from you, Marty. So I was wondering if you could start out by maybe sharing just some of your earliest memories of having a creative impulse, like how you got started becoming the kind of person that might run a YouTube channel reviewing art supplies.
Well, I guess so. I mean, I bet you it's just like everybody else's experience. I mean, both my parents were artists. So I guess that led me to, find myself with pencils and crayons in my hands at a very young age. And I don't know, there's a visceral connection when you experience something like that at a young age. Like, I'll tell you guys, every time I smell a Crayola smell, a crayon, that just brings back memories. I just remember stuff, or the wood casing, the cedar wood casing in a number 2 pencil. I mean, there's just a deep connection to good memories, and just like art as therapy when you're a kid and you just grow up. And I just remember the first time, like I think it was like first or second grade, but I realized that I could go anywhere in the universe if I just had a piece of paper and a pencil with me. And that just kind of stuck with me my whole life. And I've just, I consider it a really a real blessing, and I try never to take that for granted, and always feed that part of my soul in some way or another. So yeah, I guess that's a long story, but yeah, I guess everybody else probably has, my mom gave me a set of Crayolas and I went to town, but that's kind of how I started. And my parents were very encouraging, and no one in our house said, don't go get an art history degree or an art degree because you'll never make a living. Quite the opposite. They valued the creative expression.
What kind of work did your parents make?
Well, my mom was a graphic artist, and so was my dad. And the kind of things they did were advertising pieces and, marketing pieces and things like that for their professional career. And then in their private, own time, they would just draw, sketch, and paint, both in oils and, acrylics, things like that. So.
Oh, that's great. So, from the beginning, you saw a whole spectrum of artistic output, from something that you might do to earn a living down to the things that you do in your own time, just because it's something that you want to make.
That's right. And not to turn this political, but my dad is a conservative Republican. My mom was a liberal Democrat. So just growing up in that house where they would have these intense discussions about both art, politics, philosophy, all these things was it could be overwhelming sometimes. It'd just be just hearing about those talks and, growing up in that.
Yeah. And like you said, it's hard to get a message about don't do art, you'll never make a living, when you have two living counter examples in your home every day.
Well, that's right. Yeah. And that was good to experience, especially my mother was a great influence on me, and, her art and, just sitting with you when you're young and just encouraging you to do things and hanging your drawings on the refrigerator and saying, this is really great work, you should keep it up. I mean, all those little encouragements, I think they go a long way with kids.
And so how did that sensibility develop, sort of starting from a place of a kind of just a pure glee of having a paper and a Crayola crayon? How did that develop as you got older and started thinking about, more strategically about what am I going to spend my time on? What am I going to do? What sort of person do I want to become? Obviously, we know at least part of the end of the story is that you spend a lot of time making art and sharing art with other people. So how did that kind of start to develop in you as you became an older person?
Well, I wish it were more as you described, and maybe that I'd had some kind of a strategic plan for how I would develop into an artist, but it didn't roll that way. I just like drawing, and I would just always mess around and draw, and really didn't think about the discipline of art until I really got into high school and had an art teacher who said, you've got some natural talent, but don't go thinking you're good, because I'm going to help you realize that you're not, and here are the things you can actually do to improve on. And at the time, as a kid, you might not appreciate that, but as you get older, you realize your friends will tell you what's wrong, but your real friends will tell you what's wrong with you. So it's that directness, that honesty about how to improve my work and to be more disciplined around it. I think that helped. And then I had deviations along the way. I joined the Army and went to college and did another career and, all that stuff. So, there wasn't a constant focus on honing those artistic skills or anything. It was just always a part of, who I was. So I was going to do it. So.
Yeah, I remember being a kid for whom school came easily, and I remember so vividly the first times that I was really hit the floor academically. Somebody just punched me in the gut and was metaphorically, of course, you're not as smart as you think you are. Here's some stuff that you don't know how to do. And yeah, like you said, as a 14-year-old, I probably wouldn't have requested that. Yes, I'll have some of that humiliation, please.
That's
but
right.
Looking back on it, that's how I learned my limitations and got a sense of what it really takes to grow and develop in something.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how I feel. I mean, and the 10,000 hours thing, I think you guys might have mentioned that, or maybe I'm misremembering, but like that you have to invest 10,000 hours into a thing to get really good at it. And that can be determined by equal measures of talent and time, So as a kid, I used to play baseball a lot, and there would be guys who could show up and they would just hit 300 and they wouldn't even care, and like I had to work at it to hit 250. So it was like, just thinking about that in terms of art, whatever gifts you've been given by the universe or God or wherever those talents come from, I think you have an obligation to try to invest in those talents. And, the people that help you along the way aren't the people that always tell you how great your work is. Those people are great too, and it's good to have that encouragement. But sometimes you just need to have your cage rattled and, to take that next step. And so I've always appreciated that directness.
Yeah, absolutely. So you had this sort of sensibility as a young person, but as you said, it hasn't always been the, direct focus of your life. How recent is this sort of particular incarnation of that passion? When did you get started with Owings Art, both the blog and the YouTube channel?
Well, the blog, and thank you for asking about that. The blog has been around for quite a number of years. I don't know how far back it goes, but it's a long way. I think it's more than a decade now that I've been on the blog. But for the podcast, that started about 8 years ago, or the YouTube site. That started about 8 years ago as a way to get, sort of my political reporting into a social media setting, because people at work were like, hey, you've got to plug into this social media thing, and you got to use Facebook and Twitter and Snapchat or whatever, Instagram, whatever's around to sort of promote stories and things like that. So I kind of set up the YouTube channel as an outlet for that. But then things changed in my life and I got away from journalism and just decided, hey, this is a good way to channel my energy. And that's how it got started.
Yeah, I noticed that your earliest uploads were not really necessarily art focused. They were a lot more diverse, and then over the years it kind of honed and focused into being something that was pretty firmly organized around art. Yeah,
you're right. And I mean, a lot of the early stuff was I took it down because, you can't leave stuff up there when it belongs to public radio. So stuff like that, so those stories are off there, but a couple of them remain. I remember, I did an interview with this guy who was a ship captain for one of these tall ships. His name was Robin Walbridge, and he, captained this HMS Bounty ship, which was cool. And like 2 weeks after the interview, the ship went down. It sunk in like a storm, and he and one other crew member passed away. And I was like, oh God, I was just tragic. But anyway, I'm remembering that.
There it is. Yeah. Captain Robin Walbridge.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. And just doing interviews like that. And, some of them stayed up, and I just wanted to keep that one up in memory of Captain Walbridge. But yeah, that's certainly, it was a big part of my life, and, but I moved on. So it's good. Yeah, focusing more on art and things like that.
Yeah, this is something you and Anna have in common, which is something outside of my experience, which is just pouring such a huge amount of energy and time into something that is really just, generous, right? It's just there for other people. Do you have any questions for Marty, Anna, about like how he got started blogging? I know you probably have your own story of how you got started with the Well-Appointed Desk.
Yeah, I was curious what made you decide to start focusing on sort of publishing like art product reviews on your YouTube channel.
Well, that's a great question, and I can't remember the exact seminal moment or I decided to do it or whatever, but I can remember going around YouTube and looking for a more, shall we say, unbiased or journalistic view at art supplies. Now, I will grant you guys right now that one of my challenges is I tend to be a positive person. So almost everything I look at seems cool to me in some ways, and so I have to really go at it objectively in some cases. And So what I was doing was I was trying to find a good review on Prismacolor pencils, because my dad loved Prismacolor in the 70s and like early 80s. He, like, those were his favorite pencils. And I can just remember how he'd talk about how great and the buttery smoothness and how easy they were to use. And he would create great art pieces. And I went out and looked, and there weren't a lot of recent reviews of Prismacolors. And the ones that were on were really kind of glowing and everybody loved them. And I hadn't had much luck with the new Prismacolors. So after they had been sold to Rubbermaid, Newell, and all that stuff, they were, I mean, to be honest, they were really crappy to me. And I was like hard pressed to find a review that could actually honestly assess these pencils. And I decided, oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make a review about these pencils. But first I'm going to start with a few that I love. And, then it kind of just started off that way.
Yep. Your dad and I would agree. The old Prismacolors were amazing. The new ones, sometimes you get lucky, sometimes not so much.
Exactly. So, but people were pinging me like after that I post that video, and they're like, "Hey, you seem very objective about this stuff. Can you check these pencils out or check these paints out?" And I did like a Gorilla, painter's box review, and the guy was like, "Hey, can you post a video in a year after you've used this? And if it's still good, let us know." Yeah, good Lord. I was like, in a year, who knows where I'll be, but yeah, it just kind of, and people on the channel, it's such an awesome community. People will offer suggestions and give you ideas to improve and everything. All you have to do is ask. And I don't know if you're used to this on the Well-Appointed Desk on it, but if you ask people, they give great ideas. I mean, crowdsourcing is awesome.
Yep. Once I started, I do an Ask the Desk option where I let people send me questions if there's something that they can't find or they're looking for. But I've turned it around, and when I can't find something, I have an Ask the Readers, and I take the question and I throw it back out, and I'm like, okay, I can't find an answer. What do you guys got? And inevitably, within 3 or 4 comments, someone will have found something. And, next thing I know, there's 17 or 18 comments of people finding a solution. Did you try this? What about this? Did you look at this thing? How about this? And like even a week or 2 later, people are still finding things. So, yeah.
Yeah, are there any subscribers in particular or fellow YouTubers that you've grown close to over the years or come to really appreciate their work?
Oh, I'm so appreciative that you asked that question, because there are so many, and I'm going to leave out a billion people that whatever. I mean, not exaggerating. There's probably tons of people that I'm going to forget or not mention, but there are some special people. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Lindsay, the Frugal Crafter.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know?
I am familiar with her.
You know Lindsay's channel? Well, Lindsay is not only a great, energetic, a craft supply and art supply reviewer. She's also a wonderful artist, and just somebody who took me under her wing when I my channel started to get increased viewers. She just reached out to me and said, "Hey, is there anything I can help you with?" So she's awesome. And I don't know if you guys know Steve from The Mind of Watercolor. You know Steve Mitchell?
I think I've seen his channel a couple times.
Yeah, I think I came across it when we were doing our watercolor research.
Steve is a spectacular resource. I mean, that guy's forgotten more about watercolor paints than I'll ever know, but he is just he is a brilliant painter and somebody who's super patient and he's got the right sense of humor and timing, and his videos are so instructional and fun to watch. I always get something really good out of his videos, and that's just kind of a few people in the community. Now, I've had people like from day one. There's this young man, his name is Patrick. He's in St. Louis. I think he subscribed when he was like 12 or 13, and now he's getting ready to graduate high school and go on to college, and he's just always been super supportive. And it never ceases to amaze me how far your voice or the thing that you create travels around the world. I have a subscriber, a friend of mine in Germany named Anja Murer. She lives in Nuremberg. She's always super supportive of the channel and helping answer questions, and just a great artist herself. And then I don't know if you guys know Harry Harrison. He's got the Colored Pencil review blog, and he has got a video channel as well. And he's in Britain. I don't know if you guys have heard of him, but Harry's a great guy. His first name is Ivor Harrison, but everybody just calls him Harry. He's just awesome and a good artist as well. So there's a ton of people that, come to the site. They're regular subscribers, and just they've really helped be supportive. And I know this is going to sound insane to you guys, but I try to answer like every single comment on my YouTube channel. And I can tell you, I invest hours and hours a week in that. But I'm always thinking to myself, if somebody's going to take the time to comment or ask you a question, the least you can do is try to respond. It's kind of overwhelming now with 15,000 subscribers, but it means a lot to me to respond directly to people and to hear back from them. So it's just I hear from a lot of people that they enjoy that part of the interaction, and so I'm happy to do it. It's great. It's great having so many people that are interested. Believe me, there is no part of me at any point when I started this that expected this thing would be like. I looked up one day and there's like, what? There's 6,000 subscribers. They must be crazy. What are they doing? It's like
somebody should remind them that I've never really done this before. And
that's right. I was like amazed, and all of a sudden, people are like, "Yeah, this is cool, man. Keep doing this for." A lot of people, like, for whatever their motivation is, maybe they can't afford to review all these supplies or whatever, or they just don't have the time, and they want to be able to make an informed decision and have somebody they can go to is at least objective. So,
I think that's a huge part of it, and I also think it's helpful for people who are just getting started and they're trying to decide, if they're just getting into watercolor or they're just getting into colored pencils or whatever, they can go to your channel and they can watch all of the videos that you've done of all of the colored pencils or all of the watercolor and decide which brand to start with, rather than to walk into an art supply store and see the dizzying array of selection, the same way that we've done our episodes on colored pencils and watercolor, and at least go in and know, okay, I've heard of Holbein. Okay, I know they're from Japan. Yep. You can at least get in and have some understanding of what these are before you get there and not feel like an idiot, because there are so many brands and there's so much to know. We all want to be informed consumers now, and I don't think anybody wants to walk into a store and not have any idea. I'm like, you'd do the same thing if you were buying a washing machine, right? You wouldn't just walk in and randomly select a GE washing machine without doing any research.
Yeah, occasionally I'll have to buy something, even something as simple as, like a coffee mug or a coffee filter. And because of the circumstances, I don't have time to research and wait for a delivery. And when I go into like Meijer or some big box store, I always just have this feeling of like, this is barbaric. There are 3 options on the shelf. I have no way of getting any reviews about them. Like I always just feel so put upon, like this is no way to do commerce.
Exactly.
I was in the drugstore the other day and had to make a choice between 3 types of medicine, and I ended up pulling out my phone and I started researching while I was standing there because I couldn't stand the idea of making an uninformed decision.
Well, these things are at our fingertips now, and it's like, why not leverage that? Somebody else has tried it. Somebody else has some experience with it. And, rather than just being a consumer of those things, I just kind of thought that it would be fun to channel sort of my experience with journalism and art and put it together and sort of provide, I guess, what you'd call a service. Now, you guys know it's not completely altruistic, right? We get, you monetize your channel. So once in a while I'll get like a deposit in my bank account for $100 and I'll be like, yeehaw, more art supplies,
I forget about that with the YouTube channels.
The aptly named space credits, I think that's what they call it on the Pen Addict podcast.
Yep.
Like in some cases it just goes into your PayPal account. Like that's where Anna and I share any sort of sponsor money that we get, and it's like it's there to use on the project. So when we need something, when we need a microphone or we want to review something, it's like, oh, that's great. Yeah, it's just like a little bonus.
That's right. Yeah, and that's exactly. I'm so excited to get it, and I'm just it's fun. I mean, as you grow as a channel, you have people contact you and reach out to you, and there's like, it's tough when you get to that point where like an art supply company or a manufacturer wants to send you stuff to review. And the first thing when I get an email like that, I'll usually get contacted through email, and I'll say, just so you know, I'm going to review your supply regardless of whether or not you let me keep it or not. You know what I mean? So we have an upfront relationship that I'm going to do an honest assessment of the supply, because at the end of the day, you wouldn't accept $50 from a company to favorably review their product and lose 500 subscribers because you were just being overly, favoring their supply because they gave you money. So I feel like you have to keep that up front and be honest with a vendor or a supplier, and then I think things work a lot better. At least that's how it's been for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think somebody asked me about that. Like, do you feel comfortable, talking about supplies that you get from, like Anna and I, we both subscribe to Art Snacks in addition to our like sponsorship relationship. And for me, I think it always just comes down to transparency, like just to clearly outline the nature of the relationship and then be as honest as you can. I mean, when somebody I care about gives me a gift, I'm like probably more inclined to like it, right? Because it's coming from a place of generosity, so like you have relationships with people and you can't erase that, but you can be transparent about what those relationships are.
You hit it. Yeah. And if you tell people, like if the subscribers ask you, so I got asked enough times that I just post this little thing on the end of my videos that say, unless I state so, nobody gave me this, or I'm not being paid to talk about it. But if I am, the people will understand that, like Lindsay does that. Like she's just very clear that this is sponsored by so-and-so, and people are very understanding. They know that you have to, make a living, that this is your, you're not buying all these art supplies out of the generosity of your, heart, or, maybe you don't have that kind of money and this money helps go to that. So I think they're very understanding if you just tell them.
Yep. I jokingly, one of the tags that I use on my blog is I'm not made of money. At some point, people give me this stuff. That doesn't mean I'm not going to give a as fair and honest a review as I possibly can.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. You said something a couple minutes back, Marty, that just sort of appealed to what I really love about podcasting and about just life on the internet. You said, you never know how far your voice is going to carry out into the world. Yeah. And I was wondering if you just had maybe an anecdote to share of some time where you got feedback about your video and where it ended up and who ended up watching it and why it mattered to them, and a story that was particularly surprising or memorable.
Well, there may not be one particular one, but there's sort of a collection, and I'll characterize that collection as sort of art therapy, right? So people in their lives, they're going through, like, I have subscribers that have like disabilities or health issues. A friend of mine that I've made over the years on YouTube, his name is Doug, and he's blind, legally blind in one eye and very diminished vision in the other. And he started a channel, and just the encouragement, I sent a bunch of subscribers over to him and, tried to help, encourage him to show more of his artwork, because he does great artwork. He just, I think his disability was maybe, holding him back, or it was hard to get encouragement when you put stuff out there and nobody subscribes. And I know, because I spent 3 years doing that. I was like putting stuff up and it's like, hey, no one cares. It's like, it can be like, discouraging or whatever. But eventually over time, people come to know you, or your character comes through, or some part of what you're doing resonates with people. And so those are the kind of experiences that, that I feel really good about. It's like, if you can help develop somebody else into being a great YouTuber or encourage their art in some way, then in that way you've kind of paid it forward. And although I don't have a ton of specific examples, I can't, and I don't know that people would feel comfortable with me sharing their story. I know Doug wouldn't mind, so I mentioned his name. But there are people that reach out to me and say, look, you're the reason I'm doing art now or doing adult coloring is because you inspired me to get back into it, or you lowered the barrier for me to go out and sketch in public by putting an art adventure video on there where I can see you out engaging with the rest of the human race. It's like, yeah, come out of the house. I mean, people are nicer than they portray them on TV. So, or Facebook or the internet, if you get out and get to know people, it's pretty amazing what will happen to you if you, put down your smartphone for 10 minutes and draw. It's just awesome. So those are, I guess, I hope that answers your question.
Oh yeah, and I think you're right to share with enough detail that people know what your channel is about, but not sharing stories that aren't yours to share. That's always right. Something to keep in mind. Which you probably have a lot of thoughts about that as a journalist.
Well, people are really cool, about stuff, and especially on my channel, because like one of the questions that I think we talked about in our write-up was like, what do you like and dislike about YouTube, right? Well, and I hate to steal your question a little early, but this kind of segued into that. So if it's okay, I'll
please go ahead.
Just mention that I like 99.9% of what happens on YouTube in terms of my world. Where I go and the videos I watch and things like that, where it's, mostly art related. And creative people are, don't hate me for saying this, but if you're not creative out there, apologies to you in advance, but creative people have a certain generosity gene to them. They like what they do and they want to share it, or they feel good about what they do, or their dispositions are tend to be more open and kind or whatever. Anyway, that's the part I really love. And then once in a while, you'll post a video and you've got like 500 likes and there's just one guy. There's just one guy who's got to click the thumbs down. And it's like, I think it's the same guy. I'm not sure. But every time I post a video, it's got like one dislike. And I'm like, one of these days, I just like to get just a 0 on that dislike, And that's part of my, weirdness. But on the other hand, in all seriousness, like some people will try to blow up the channel with like a derogatory comment about the video or someone else on the channel, a comment or something, or turn it, ugly. And like, I just delete those comments. I mean, to be honest with you guys, I don't need that. And the world's got enough of that. So I'm just like, no thanks. And
Amen.
You're out of here.
I mean, I think that is the only way forward. When people talk about how bad, air quotes, YouTube is, yeah, those are parts of YouTube where like there aren't any grown-ups around like taking charge of what's going to happen in that comment thread. And
that's right.
I think that you have some responsibility for what happens in a space of the internet that you're, giving your name and giving your attention to. And I am fully supportive of a very quick trigger on the delete button, because like you said, there's a lot of parts of the internet where you can do that stuff if that's what you want to. Not here in my little corner.
And that's your brand, right? I mean, and not just that, but and I don't know when this word became bad or whatever, because I don't think it is, but I'm very liberal when it comes to free speech. Like if somebody wants to say something and criticize some of my artwork, I'm very ready to accept that or something like that. But if they're just going to blow up the video or the channel or whatever with, expletives or bad remarks or harsh language or unkindness to somebody else, no time for that. But like some people will draw the line even harder than that. So they won't let somebody post a link to their artwork or channel on their channel. And I started out so isolated and alone on YouTube that I feel like I want people to post links to their artwork or their YouTube channel and help them out, not like if it's a guy who's marketing like real estate or something like that. I mean,
or
but
some cheap Canadian pharmaceutical products.
or, it's like, this isn't really cologne, but you get, no, I just, it's like, that stuff, maybe not, but like if somebody wants to post a link to their YouTube channel and they're just starting out, or they've got, 500 or 600 subscribers, I'm like, please do so. Even like Lindsay and Steve, they both have way more subscribers than I do. And they'll oftentimes will post links to each other's and we'll give shout outs. Go check out Steve's. And I refer people over to Steve and Lindsay all the time, and a ton of other people on YouTube. Like if I can't answer the question, I know somebody who can, and you send them there. And that's a much better way to, I think, communicate or build a community on YouTube.
Absolutely. I think that's how the internet should work, is to build a community, not try to tear other people down.
Exactly. Life's too short for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's really great, and we haven't talked about this in detail, Anna, but I assume you've played a similar role on your site, that when you take that kind of initiative and say, look, you can say that you don't agree with me, you can give me feedback, you can ask tough questions, but if you start being cruel to people or creating a space where people like don't feel like it's friendly, then you end up not having a place where people don't want to hang out, and if it's a well-protected place, then people are more able to be vulnerable, more able to share their own work, more able to ask their own questions. And that's the cost of not taking that step, is you end up excluding a lot of other people.
You So, Marty, can you tell us a little bit about your actual art practice? You mentioned a little bit about you have some art activities that you do each week, but do you carry a sketchbook with you on a regular basis?
All the time. Matter of fact, sometimes my wife will be like, "You're not bringing that thing to bed, are you?" It's like, well, I might need to sketch something, it's like, but anyway, yeah, she, she'll remind me sometimes, and she'll just like, you're bringing that into a restaurant, we're having breakfast. But I might see something there that I want to sketch. The egg might come out in a particular way, and I might need to sketch it. I don't know. It's not only a fixation, but it might be an obsession, But I think what you do in life is like somebody said this to me a long time ago. I forget who it was, but it's like anything you want to do in life, you can do it if you just develop it into a habit, no matter what that is. So just stick in that sketchbook. Like I have you guys, it's like a library in my house. It's embarrassing. But, with all the sketchbooks, different sizes, but most time I can get a sketchbook into my backpack or even into my pocket, And if I get a soft side sketchbook, we won't get into all that, but I'll stick a sketchbook in my pocket. I'll take it with me, and everywhere I go, life is speaking to me, and I'm seeing things and feeling things and observing things in a way that makes me feel better about the world. That isn't to say that I'm blind to the wickedness or the cruelty of the world, but it is to say that I can observe beauty in things through close observation that perhaps I wouldn't ordinarily see if I weren't paying attention. And so, I take it everywhere with me, and I try to draw and paint with watercolor as much as I can. I even use markers and all kinds of stuff. But yeah, I'm always just trying stuff, experimenting. I wonder if that flower, I wonder if I can paint that, or, here's a child's shoe. Let me see if I can sketch or paint that. But yeah, it's just important to me in my life that I make it a habit.
So watercolor is one of your favorite mediums?
It didn't, and it didn't used to be. I'm not going to lie to you guys. Watercolor scared me because I was more like from a drafting background where pencil work and ink are very precise and important, that you keep a very structured, regimented sort of approach to it. And watercolors were this crazy, wild thing that it just goes crazy and it doesn't behave the way you want it to. And it just goes wild on the paper. I'm like, no way am I ever touching that stuff. And then, I don't know, one day I was sitting next to this gal who paints, and she's like, hey, can I show you something on watercolor painting I did? And I know her name. It's Debbie Johnson. And we were taking a class together, and I looked at what she did and how precise and accurate and sort of photorealistic this watercolor was. And I said, how on earth did you do that? And she said, see, Marty, don't fight the watercolor. Just go with it, brother. And I was like, okay, I'll try it. And, and from that day forward, I was like hooked, this is really cool. And, I oil paint, so, and do mostly landscapes, and it's a completely different approach. You don't go dark to light, you go light to dark. It's this whole thing. But, when I actually studied and learned about the discipline of art, how the masters would go out, they would first sketch something in their sketchbook in pencil. Then they would do a couple of watercolor studies and some thumbnails. And then they would do like a rough underpainting and then a small oil study. And then they would gradually, their work would progress like that. And I was wondering, why did they go through all this effort when they can just pick up the oil paint and just paint this painting? And then I began to learn and discover that they did this because, A, they got more familiar with their subject matter as they went along, and they made these minute but very important and critical corrections to their work. And I just thought, wow, I just had an epiphany. And it was like, I know you guys have probably, if you've studied art, you've had this. It's like, boom, there it is. There's this mystery in art that everybody keeps so secret. And then suddenly it's like a light goes on and you're like, that's how it's done. And it doesn't help you be any better as an artist, but it helps you understand the process. And yeah, that's it, really.
It's part of that practice thing they talk about.
Yeah, that's right. That's because a lot of people on my YouTube channel will go, hey, and I know you guys have gotten this probably in your life, but hey, how do I become a better artist? And I'm like, well, it's going to take a lot of practice, and you're going to have to, do this one thing 1,000 times. And then you're going to notice that, 3 out of 10 of your pieces of art are really, what you consider good for yourself. And then gradually over time, it's 4 out of 10, then it's 5 out of 10, then it's 6 out of 10, and you just gradually become better and better at what you do. Just like a relationship. You sort of have to work at it and practice in it, and be open to new things in it, and it will flower.
I recently was thinking about that because somebody else was talking about even very accomplished artists still have those moments where, not every drawing, not every painting, not every sketch turns out the way that they want it to. They're not happy with everything. That 3 out of 10, 4 out of 10 average. Are they satisfied with how it turns out? And it reminded me of something that one of my photography professors told me in college, that on an average roll of film, 36 exposures, back when you shot on film and not with a digital camera, that if you got 3 or 4 good shots on a roll of 36, you were doing really well. And we're not talking exposure or anything like that. We're actually talking composition. If you were out doing like street photography or anything like that, if you got 3 or 4 good compositions on a roll of film, you were doing really good. And it's like, that's the same thing.
Pretty much. I mean, you just have to work at it. I was reading something the other day, and I put this on my blog, but I was reading this quote by Nelson Mandela, which said, I never fail. I either win or learn. And, if you start looking at life like that, like your mistakes aren't a failure, it's brilliant what happens in your life. I mean, it starts to permeate your existence, and pretty soon you're doing things in other areas of your life where you're applying that sort of attitude, and it's not so bad. You're not so scared anymore. You're not so worried about things. I don't experience that anxiety I used to when I was in my 30s about those things. I'd be like, so worried, and fearful. And now I'm like, whatever. If I screw it up, I'm going to learn something really important here, or at least important for me. I mean, so I think those are important lessons to, like, I wish more young people would would take that to heart. I mean, if I could go back and tell the younger Marty that, that would be what I would tell that person is, relax, dude. It's going to work out. You're going to learn from these things, and it's okay to fail,
Yeah, you mentioned earlier that in your experience, creative people tend to be sort of nice, generous people. And I almost wonder if there's a surprising causal relationship there where the practice of being creative and learning to forgive yourself and learning to manage the fear of failure, that cultivates in you a generosity and a softness and a friendliness.
Yeah, you're sympathetic, right? I mean, because you're like, yeah, I know what it's like to try to get that tone 1,000 times and not get it. It's like, how many times have I done a crappy drawing and looked at it and go, oh God, this is horrible. And, I share this with people and they just look at me in bewilderment. But I'll tell you guys something. Every spring I take a bunch of stuff and I burn it. It's a sort of cathartic experience for me. I just light the bonfire in my backyard. We usually have a Christmas tree out there. I'm sorry, people aren't going to like me very much, but yes, I use an actual Christmas tree, but from a sustainable forest. But, the tree dries out and it creates this huge bonfire in the spring. And I'll just take a bunch of oil paintings and drawings that I've done and I just heap them on there because God forgive me if somebody looks at this in 100 years and said, what the hell was that guy thinking? So it's like they're never getting a hold of that stuff. I mean, it's up in smoke. So, but I've learned over time to keep more of what I would consider learning pieces around. But yes, every year, just burn it,
I've definitely had an old art bonfire. Have you done that, Anna?
No, but my mom just moved out of her old house, and there was a bunch of stuff that they're like, oh, we should send this to you. And I'm like, nope, throw it in the trash. Just throw it away. I don't even want to see it. It's from high school. Just throw it away. I haven't seen it in 20 years. Just throw it away.
Yeah, some of those things are just better left in the past.
Yeah, there is a really well-known painting professor at the college where I went, and he was known for just assigning a lot of work and being very brutal with the pace that he expected and the quality that he expected. And one of the cruelest things he would do is he would assign this huge 8-foot by 5-foot painting that the students would spend, weeks on while they were doing smaller studies. And then for the next assignment, he would assign a collage based on that painting. And he would force all the students to cut up the painting and make a collage out of it.
Oh, Mike, that's horrible.
Yeah, but the idea was that he was just training into them, like, you have to make it and then give it away and make it and give it away and learn to have that fluidity and to be less attached to the things that you made and trust yourself that you can do it again, to not be so precious and controlling. But yeah, it's pretty brutal.
That's right. I mean, I look at things I did like 4 years ago. Hell, I can look at something I did last week and go, oh God, you did not do that, did you? And it's like, but again, it's that lesson of learning that comes from it. So it all has value if you're willing to open up to that and take it to heart. And that's what I try to encourage people to do. It's like, let go of that. You learned something, didn't you? The worst thing to do is waste your effort and not learn something or get something out of it. That would leave me with a lot of regret if I didn't do that. But I almost always learn something. So.
Absolutely. You wanna have the final word, Anna? Is there any last question that you want to ask Marty?
You had a note here about paying it forward.
Well, yeah. I mean, really, that's about just making sure that that you encourage the arts in people and in like schools and organizations wherever it's possible. Like, here's some creative ideas I can throw at you guys. Like, so if you work in an office place where there isn't artwork up on the walls, ask somebody about it. I mean, it doesn't have to be controversial, but Maybe there's some people in the company, almost every company or person you work with is going to have some kind of artistic outlet. So I've done that. I've, reached out to HR and said, hey, these, gray walls that you've got here, this Soviet era paint job, it's like, it would make it a lot more palatable, and it would cheer this place up if we could hang some stuff up on the wall once in a while. And they're like, oh yeah, okay, that's cool. We'll have to look at it as an HR group, but yeah, let's do that. Or just going out to a school and not like, so you guys will be familiar with this maybe, but I sometimes hear people grousing and complaining that schools have cut back a lot on arts and, investing in art for kids. And instead of complaining, I would go to the local school and say, yes, I'd like to volunteer to come by once a week and teach the kids after school and do some art with them, whether it's collage or painting or whatever it is. And do that. I mean, the booster club for the football team, they're doing that stuff outside of school. So it's okay to interject yourself where you see a void. And I think if more people did that, we would create a better planet, because to be honest with you guys, I have a very fond kinship to people in the arts. And I can tell you from somebody who's in the corporate world that some of the most highly valued people in the boardroom are not the accountants and the sales guy and the marketing people. They're the creatives. Because those people are pushing boundaries and trying to look for originality in product and content. So that's just my way of thinking. And maybe I went on too long, but yeah.
No, I think those are great ideas. I'm lucky at where I work. We have amazing art on the walls, and I have to be careful when people come to visit that they don't wander off.
Just following the art down the hallway.
Yes, I often lose Bob when he comes to visit because he will wander off down the hallway to look at art. But Hallmark has an amazing art collection.
That's very cool. And some very famous artists.
Yes, yeah. We have Norman Rockwell's on the wall. We have, I would like to try and rattle off the names of the pieces. And actually, I'm stumped to try to, I think we actually have a website that lists some of the art that is hanging in the building. But yeah, just a spectacular collection. And they actually move the art around in the building. So at some point, there's prints based off of the G's Bend quilts
wow.
They were on my floor for a while and they moved them. And I'm not sure where they went to. But yeah, just there's Chuck Close pieces.
Chuck Close is awesome, yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple of those. That's one that he'll wander off if he sees that one. I have to go get him.
Oh yeah,
come back here. But some of the original print posters, like the actual ones with the pin marks from the artists. Like Toulouse-Lautrec's posters that he did.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, and they're there. And it took me 3 or 4 years of working there before I realized that they weren't litho prints. They were the actual prints that he made.
That's crazy.
I had to walk up to him and you actually saw the seam lines where they pasted the two sheets together to make them big enough. I was like, oh, these are the actual ones. They're not fakes. They're the real ones.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
You're lucky.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And it's I almost feel like you sort of forget,
Yeah, yeah. It's easy to just have it become normal.
Yeah, but.
Yeah. Well, Marty, this has been so lovely. I feel like you fit in here seamlessly. I think we are of one mind. It's been a pleasure to have you here.
Well, thank you guys.
I hope you'll come back and talk to us again sometime.
Well, we got to hit art supplies hard, you guys.
I was gonna say we got to do another one that's just tell us what's in your desk. What are you using?
Yeah, exactly. And what are the subscribers, all these people using, and what do they love? I'd love to talk to you guys about that stuff. I don't want to get off the podcast before I just quickly mention that Stillman and Byrne, the people that make the most incredible sketchbooks in the universe. And I said that before they were my friends. So that counts. But they reached out to me and they were like, hey, would you be willing to do a video, a different kind of video with us? So could you help us explain the different sketchbooks we have? Because I don't know if you guys are familiar with them, but they have like 6 different kinds of sketchbooks and they're all different. And like, how do we differentiate when we go to, if you know Stillman and Byrne, you could drive a tank over their books and they still work great. I've just like, you could bleed on the books and do anything you want, but they're just so durable and the paper is so cool. So they're like, can you help us do a video? So I'm working with them right now to create that content for their website.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm just so happy to be, because it's like when you use a product that you guys love, right? That you just are in love with, and then all of a sudden, somewhere along the line, they notice you and they go, "Hey, we would love for you to talk about our stuff." It's like, okay, no problem. It's like, it'd be awesome. So yeah, I carry their sketchbooks everywhere, and they're just awesome.
So what's your favorite Stillman and Byrne's book?
Well, that's like asking me which one of my kids I love the most. But in all,
well, you can answer that question too if you want. Although,
yes, well, I have 4 beautiful kids, and I love them all very deeply. They're great kids, but the one. It's hard to narrow it down. So I like the Alpha and the Zeta series. Okay. Now lately I've been using more of the toned sketchbooks, which like the Epsilon, the one that's in the middle. And I really like their extra heavyweight books because I abuse the paper. So marker, watercolor, ink, graphite, oil. I've done oil paintings on these sketchbooks. Wow. So yeah, it's just those are my favorites.
Using like the water-based oil? Actual oil paint?
No, I have done the oil-based, and I talk all about the Winsor & Newton oil-based line of paints in one of my videos, but I do use traditional oil paints now more and more. I mean, I have before, and then I switched over to the water-based because I wanted to give them a real try, because people were like, well, there's like art snobs, right? You can't create real art with a water-based oil paint. It's like, well, yes, you can. Of course you can. And so you create great art with a yellow number 2 pencil. And I tell people that, and they're like, well, whatever, time to move on. But yeah, so I just do regular oil painting on these, and I don't know how long they'll last like that, because I don't know how that chemical interacts, but I just know that I feel really good when I can paint and draw on these books. So.
All right. Well, we'll keep our eye out for that video and send it along when it's done. It sounds like it'll be a cool partnership.
Should be fun.
Yeah,
well,
thanks
a lot. Yeah, thanks for letting me give them a plug. I really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, we, like you said, we talked about it when I think that was our first episode, wasn't it, Anna? The sketchbook.
Yeah, when we did our sketchbook episode, we mentioned them. Yeah, because the Stillman and Byrne is the only sketchbook I ever finished cover to cover.
Well, and why? Because you were just drawn back to it, right?
Absolutely. The funny thing was I bought a second one, and I think the first one I bought was an Epsilon, and the second one I bought was an Alpha, and I actually liked the Epsilon better than the Alpha. And so I didn't get as far through the Alpha, and then I bought another Epsilon. And now I'm thinking, well, now I like the Alpha better.
That's what
So I've gone back to the Alpha. So now I've got 2 going at the same time. But yeah, I'm pretty dedicated to the Stillman and Byrne. I just got one of their the soft cover ones.
Yes, they just relaunched the soft covers because they had a wee production problem early on where I believe the stitching or the binding wasn't to the standard they wanted it to be. So if you snatched like a very early soft cover, like you've got one of those, what do they call it, like a pretty rare notebook, because they recalled them all.
No, this was the one that just came out like maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yes, they just reintroduced them, so they're just hitting the market now, and they're awesome.
Yeah, so I'm pretty happy with it. The first couple pages are a little bit hard to open because they kind of stick to the covers, and that's the only thing that's bothering me. But otherwise, they seem to be pretty good.
Well, dig in, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I tell people. Just start sketching.
So,
Cool.
All right, Heather, we ready to go?
Yeah, I think we are. We want to thank Art Snacks again for believing in Art Supply Posse and for giving us such great support. Don't forget to check out their monthly subscription service and give it a try if you're interested. Use coupon code Art Supply Posse for 10% off your first month. You can find us at Art Supply Posse on Instagram and Twitter. If you have a question, you can send that to us using hashtag AskASP on Twitter, or just send us a regular old email at hello@artsupplyposse.com. And if people want to find you, Marty, where can they look for you on the internet?
Well, they can just go to owingsart.com or check out my YouTube channel, which is also Owings Art. And if you just Google Owings Art, you'll see me all over the place. It's crazy how the internet, you just boom, I post something and it's out there. It's like, wow.
Yeah, it'll be easy to find, and we'll make sure all those links make it into the show notes as well. So thank you all for listening in, and thanks again to Marty for joining us this evening, and have a good week, everyone.
Good night, Posse.
Good night.